work on the go-to-market strategy and operations team at LinkedIn, primarily supporting enterprise customers. Today I'll be giving a talk on overall B2B go-to-market strategy, covering enterprise and SMB go-to-market. Out of curiosity, is everyone here building or operating at an enterprise SaaS company, or are there also consumer startups as well? Consumer? Okay,
I think it's a good mix. I think it's a mix.
Okay, gotcha. Well, hopefully this go-to-market strategy gives you some inspiration regardless. So we'll cover 3 topics. We're going to talk overall what is a go-to-market strategy. From there, we'll talk about how do you go about defining your product value and understanding how to message it appropriately. And lastly, we'll talk about a couple of key go-to-market approaches that you can use in B2B go-to-market strategy. So what is a go-to-market strategy? A go-to-market strategy defines how you plan to reach your target customers and help you understand how do you hold a strong market presence. Usually after finding product market fit, you think about how do I build long-term growth and set up the foundation so I can reach my growth goals in the future. This part is actually very important. So as you think about the space that you play in, and before you even think about who you should sell to, how do you go about selling, it's really important to understand your product very, very well and understand exactly what is the product, who are the customers that you're servicing, what are the problems that your users are facing, and how exactly does your product add to that problem. From there, once you think about what is the core value of your product, you want to be able to articulate the messaging very, very well. So this is a phase that you can think about as you define your messaging. So your product is a product for this specific target market for this specific purpose. You want to be able to articulate what it does differently from your competitors and what are the unique features that your product has that your competitor do not. Having this inner clarity is very important, especially as you define your customer segments later on in terms of whether you want to start with more strategic clients, enterprise clients, or if you want to lead with a product-led growth approach, using more demand generation and marketing tactics, etc. So very important step here, being able to articulate the value of your product. So here are 2 general go-to-market approaches. You have the top-down approach, which usually involve a lot of talking to executives and navigating a lot of different stakeholders and buyer personas. And on the right, you have a bottoms-up approach that may involve more marketing or speaking with folks on the ground before you bubble it up to the leadership team. So let's actually take a look at what are the differences between the 2 models and what are some of the pros and cons of each. Starting with the top-down approach, this is great because once you get your foot in the door, you are able to have leadership level championship and usually have a much higher value in the sale that you're able to do. So as you see here, you start at the top. The sales cycle is usually much longer, and you build relationships intentionally with different people across the organization. And you want to be very intentional around what are their specific needs and how do you position your product to meet your client's need at this specific moment in time. A risk here or a potential advantage here is that there likely aren't many customers if you're working with the bigger players. So if your product has a lot of strong product market fit and you're very clear on your value, you're able to close just a couple of deals and be able to meet whatever revenue or growth goals that you're looking for. The risk here is that if you don't navigate the sales process well enough and intentional enough, you may risk losing these clients overall internally. So you want to be very intentional if this is the approach that you want to take for your product. Now, looking at the right side on a bottoms-up approach, this you usually start with ground level users, especially if this is a more technical product that potentially solves a pain point that you personally had before if folks here are from a technical background, for example. Level of entry, so barrier to entry is generally lower. You can use a mix of marketing tactics, word of mouth, to just make sure people start adopting your product and seeing the value that your product brings. So sales cycle here might be a lot shorter than your top-down approach. And generally, your average sales value is going to be smaller than if you were to take a top-down approach and start with the leadership team. Something to consider here, it may not be as clean as top-down or bottoms-up. Sometimes you might need a mix, but depending on the nature of your product and the stage of your company, you may want to consider which one you want to prioritize as you continue to scale your products, go to market. So here is a chart of some of the key stakeholders you will navigate as you take a top-down approach. You want to make sure you prioritize bringing on sales talent who have a level of executive presence. These sales folks likely are much more tailored and refined in how they approach client relationships and client sales. And they can also bring in appropriate resources from other parts of the organizations to make sure that any questions that your clients have throughout the sales process is intentionally addressed. Looking at a bottoms-up sales approach, so here is where you can think about investing in marketing or other form of demand generation channels. Something to balance is the nature of growth, marketing, and also sales in this process. Marketing is great because you can generate a lot of virality and hype, but you also want to make sure that you have the sales team's support in place to make sure you can actually capture the monetization side of the demand that you generate from using marketing or other form of bottoms-up virality approaches. So overall, these are an overview of some of the principles and approaches you can think about for B2B go-to-market. Open to any questions or discussions or comments here. Yep.
You work at LinkedIn, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does LinkedIn use generative AI to allow parts of what you just explained? Like, who has Sales Navigator here? But I haven't seen generative AI yet.
That's a great question. Yeah, are you asking more about how LinkedIn is using AI in our go-to-market motion or across the entire
like
LinkedIn ecosystem?
Spots, like I run ads with my clients, right? We do outbound, we do all that kind of stuff. But of course, how is AI going to play a role in that, in every step of the puzzle that you just showed?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's also a very complex one. But I can give you a high-level overview of where AI have been something that our go-to-market leadership teams have considered. So maybe I'll just speak for advertising because that's a product line that I work under. On advertising, you can think about 3 parts of our go-to-market motion where AI can play an important role. One is obviously within our core advertising products. We're thinking about how AI can help us do better creative creation and how it can enhance the overall advertising experience on the LinkedIn platform. So this is directly facing consumers and the overall advertising experience on LinkedIn. The second part is more around internal tooling. So we are thinking about how some of our CRM systems, specifically how meeting notes, for example, are collected when we talk to clients and how we're able to collect that note, synthesize it, and put it into our CRM systems. That entire workflow is something that our internal tooling team is thinking about using AI to automate that entire process. In addition to that, there's also a couple of other internal tooling areas around how our advertisers interact with our advertising tools, including how they track campaign performance, etc., that we're also thinking about using AI to improve performance on as well. Lastly, which is probably a more manual part, so our sales teams are not as tech savvy as engineers, data scientists, or product managers on actually working on products. But I think everyone at this point knows how important it is to learn the basics of how do you use ChatGPT or other AI tools to help you be much more efficient in your work. So one of the work streams that we started internally is actually a hackathon to get our sales field to, one, learn how to use these tools, and second, think about the creative ways they can use it to maybe draft messages to our clients in a more concise and creative manner, or even in the way they run their day-to-day operations, they're able to use it to speed up some of the operational processes internally. So I would say those 3 areas are where we've seen AI become increasingly important within the advertising vertical.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi guys.